Hey guys, we're back here. Fortunately, we're not back in my room. I'm back at work. So, hey, we got a good 2 weeks. We got a lot of stuff done. So, let's get back to work. So, things have to be a little tiny bit different here. Give me 1 second. Then, yeah, they have to be a tiny little bit different. It's mostly because I have to relearn how to do sprite animation. So, what I'm gonna do is I'll dedicate at least 1 hour a day to each project that I'm working on, but later on I gotta work on sprite animation. Because for the next Golden video, I'm gonna try to get it to work. I'm gonna try to get it to work. So again, I'll dedicate at least 1 hour of work. This one's towards the middle. Horror will be done. That's why I'm doing this one right now. Horror is gonna be done in the next session. Then I'll start dubbing it. All right. So on the plane ride, I pretty much had enough time to read. I had enough time to actually refresh myself with the mythos that I'm actually going to introduce here. Okay, let's see. We'll talk about Psyche and Eros. As usual, do not drink unless you're an adult. I guarantee you, I'm fighting a losing battle with the sprite animation for the next Gold Sun video. There's only so much you can do with the sprites they give you. They don't have a lot of sprites that I can actually use, like Newgrounds level type of sprite animation, like that type of stuff. I'm not gonna be able to do that, but I was young at one point, chat. I was young at one point. I was able to do it, but it's been 20 years since I actually worked on it, so we'll see what I can do. But I need to dedicate some time to actually relearn how to do it. Okay, so we're talking about Psyche and Eros. $7:30. Okay. Can't believe I missed that. Also, I brought the mic, so no one complained about the audio for the past 2 weeks. So I'm assuming this is good. Long before witches and game boards. Yeah, you know what? We can do it that way. Ooh, this is a sad song. No. I'm gonna so tear that plot hole apart once I get that. This is Golden Sun music. I'm gonna tear that plot hole apart once I get there. I cannot spell right now. I can never spell. All right, we can talk about Psyche and Eros first. Memoria. Actually appropriate. But it's actually really appropriate. Holy crap, nice. Lemuria shares ancient Greek and Roman architecture. So, hmm. I had my notes with me just in case. I just don't want to go to them just yet. I'm just trying to remember it off the top of my head. No, conditions is a better word to use. Always tested. So never look back to the lover's face. All right, I'm gonna fact check myself in a second. Just give me a minute. As usual, always keep an iPad with notes just in case some bullshit happens. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me just read this real quick. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions, but their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her. Broke the one rule never. Broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. Just a moment. Great song. In that moment of doubt, love was lost. Work is texting me already. One of emotional endurance. This is such a great song. Bro. Racism in no discrimination in the GBA game? Holy shit. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions, but their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost. But her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, and a painful quest to earn back the love she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear. Greek mythology is messed up, chat. Greek mythology is very messed up. There is an overlap, which I'm going to get to in a second. This is yellow. Yep. Do 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 do. See what she can answer. I got something. Again, I have to be careful because with this narrative, we're teetering so close to the bad area, which is speculative shenanigans. We don't want to cross that event horizon. We don't want to go there, especially in Umineko. There's nothing but pain if we go that way. Just a shot. How are you gonna follow up? I think aloud. Just don't mind me. Yeah, thank you. Hmm. This one's hard. It's hard because I'm using mythological parallels. So I actually have to really like lock in with this. I normally don't use mythological parallels, but there are some, especially with Battler. So I really gotta lock in with this one. He's such a complex character. Right. I probably might end up doing Angie soon. Battler and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows this pattern. Love built on gradual trust, broken by fear, and tested through suffering. All right. So let's read what we got so far. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions, but their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost, but her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tales Psyche's tale is one of trials. Whoops, always proofread. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, and painful quest to earn back the love she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but from fear. Where would you put Battler and Umineko rank? Personally, I put him right up there with Beatrice. Yeah, yeah. Battler and Beatrice like yin and yang, to be honest. Two sides of heads and tails. Yeah, I would put them right next to each other. It's once you start introducing like other characters, which gets kind of like crazy. But if it's just Battler and Beatrice, yeah, Battler's up there with Beatrice, for sure. So there is something else I can add here. So just Battler's disbelief. Okay. About stubborn logic. It's the same. Psychic. I totally butchered that, but that's fine. This is why we have spell check. Oh my god. So we all know how Battler is. Battler will defend the notion that everything that happened on Rokinjima can be explained with logic, even though Beatrice is right in front of him. Same with Psyche carried, which is an inability to trust what he cannot see. Granted, some of Beatrice's explanation on how she did the murders, wow. The closed room where she killed God, I can't remember Ava's husband. Ava and her husband. It's been a bit. That one was nuts. I'm like, wow, you used the stake as a kunai and it ricocheted and just killed both of them. Okay, let me read this over again. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions. But their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost. Her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, and a painful quest to earn back the love she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear. For needing to see what she couldn't understand. And this is where Battler's story overlaps. Battler and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows this pattern. Love built upon fragile trust, broken by fear, and tested through suffering. Battler's disbelief isn't just about stubborn logic. I agree. I don't understand why they underestimate Battler so much. He's important as the yada yada yada. He's important to the narrative as Beatrice, yet they diminish him for no reason. Because they view him, and I quote, as incompetent. That's the thing. Battler is brilliant. His deductive reasoning, brilliant, top notch. It's just trying to explain the murders through a logical point of view is like nigh impossible. It's like every game board is just designed just for him to lose. Like every explanation that Beatrice, Erica, everybody else that he has to deal with gives him, like in regards to how the murders were carried out, is just ridiculous. It just gets worse and worse as the games progress. But no, he's a very smart individual. It's just everybody views him as incompetent. All right. Valor disbelief isn't about just stubborn logic. It's the same as the same wounded psyche carry, which is the inability to trust what you cannot see. Hmm. I wonder. This not to. Oh man, like he has to put up with so much crap. Like again, it's like I think after the second game board, I'm like, wow, there's so much stuff happening now. Like Valor, how are you even like how is your brain not becoming mush right now? In a similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Valor, not to. That's when. More I can add to this, but I think I've gotten to the nitty gritty of this. This one's a lot harder. This comparison's a lot harder, but I think I got to the meat and potatoes of it. Let me just read this one more time. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions. But their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost, but her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, a painful quest to earn back the love she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear, for needing to see what she couldn't understand. And this is where Balor's story overlaps. Balor and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows this pattern. Love built on fragile trust, broken by fear, and tested through suffering. Valor's disbelief isn't just about stubborn logic, it's the same wound Psyche carried, which is the inability to trust what he cannot see. In a similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Valor. Not to expose a trick, but to unearth a truth. I'm gonna add a couple more sentences to that. I just didn't like the way that ended. Similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Valor, not to expose a trick, but to unearth a truth. Change. And each time the game board resets, the truths change. I'm allowed to be cheesy here. I'm allowed to be cheesy. I'm thinking about writing some diabolical stuff. Not to expose a trick, but to unearth a truth. And each time the game board resets, the truths may change. Truths may change. Truths may change, but the heart of the story remains the same. Okay, let me read this again. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tale is the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions, but their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost, but her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, and a painful quest to earn back the love that she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear, for needing to see what she couldn't understand. And this is where Battler's story overlaps. Battler and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows the pattern: love built on fragile trust, broken by fear, and tested through suffering. Battler's disbelief isn't just about stubborn logic, it's the same wound Psyche carried, which is the inability to trust what he cannot see. In a similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Battler, not to expose a trick, but to unearth a truth. And each time the game board resets, the truth may change, but the heart of the story remains the same. To love is to risk seeing. I like it, but I need to fill in some gaps. Similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Valor, not to expose a trick, but to unearth for truth. Again, as mentioned, I gotta be careful here because, as we know with Umineko, speculation is pretty much Umineko. We're speculating through each episode, but I'm not trying to get towards that event horizon. We're trying to stay away from that because that's a gigantic rabbit hole we just don't want to get to. Okay, I got some. Beatrice is not asking him to solve her. Jeez. I will deny your existence. Her. That's a little bit better. All right, I'm gonna do a hot take. I'm probably gonna regret this, but I'm gonna do a hot take real quick. All right, that's certainly a take. All right, let's read this whole section over. I'm definitely gonna come back to this later and adjust things. The Umineko universe has parallels with mythos that have been told throughout human history. One tells the story of Psyche and Eros from Greek mythology. Psyche and Eros, mortal and god, fell in love under impossible conditions, but their bond was tested when Psyche, driven by doubt and fear, broke the one rule given to her: never look upon her lover's face. In that moment of doubt, love was lost. But her journey didn't end there. Psyche's tale is one of trials, one of emotional endurance, vulnerability, and a painful quest to earn back the love that she had shattered through mistrust. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear, for needing to see what she couldn't understand. And this is where Battler's story overlaps. Battler and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows this pattern. There's a lot of parallels. I lived a very funny childhood. I read too much. Boredom is a very terrible thing, but yeah, I have some knowledge of Greek mythology, and I saw parallels with this. I'm like, yeah, there's three parallels I'm gonna be referencing. This one, Iana's descent to the underworld, and um, Sisyphus and the Phoenix. I'm gonna get Iana started up, but I do gotta get ready for work soon, so I'll do like another 15 to 20 minutes. She wasn't punished for malice, but for fear, for needing to see what she couldn't understand. And this is where Battler's story overlaps. Battler and Beatrice's conflict, in a way, is a modern retelling of this myth, which follows this pattern. Love built on a fragile trust, broken by fear, and tested through suffering. Battler's disbelief isn't just about stubborn logic. It's the same wound. Oops, I double wrote that. Always proofread. It's the same wound Psyche carried, which is the inability to trust what he cannot see. In a similar vein to Psyche, each game board becomes a trial for Battler. Not to expose a trick, but to unearth a truth. Beatrice is not asking him to solve her. She is asking him to believe in her. With his repeated refusal of her existence, his desperate need for control, he won't. Yes! Yes! Yes, definitely. Ooh. Write that down. For my next Umineko video, I will reference that. Nice one. That's actually a brilliant, nice. Divine comedy. Nice. Cool. Okay. With his repeated refusal of her existence, his desperate need for control, he wounds her. In doing so, wounds himself, and each time the game board resets, the truths may change, but the heart of the story remains the same. To love is to risk seeing. I can end that sentence a little bit better, though. To love is to risk seeing. And to truly see. And to truly see is finally believing. I totally butchered that. Okay, good. I feel like we did good there. All right, so I just gotta. So that's that section. Let me just go over this because I was kind. Hey, That's why I'm here. It gives me time away from work. I love doing this. This is good stuff. It gives me time away from work and allows me to look at my passion of lore. All right, I have to reread this whole thing over again because I was actually on vacation, so I was kind of speedrunning this because it was way too hot in my studio that I had back at home. So let's see. There is something almost admirable about the way Battler Ushiromiya smiles. He smiles in the face of the impossible. Challenges witches like a stage actor daring to steal the spotlight. To an outsider, it looks like confidence, reckless, brilliant confidence. But confidence isn't the same as courage. What Battler wears isn't courage, it's a mask. He didn't take on the role of the detective to find the truth. He wears it to hold himself together because the truth, whatever it is not kind. And if he stares at it too closely, it may tear him apart. He left the family behind out of rebellion, left without warning, without knowing what would follow. And by the time he returned, something in that house began to rot. His absence became a question mark stitched into the fabric of other people's grief. He may not have caused the pain, but he wasn't there to soothe it. And in a family like the Ushiromiya's, silence echoes louder than screams. So when Battler steps into the game board, he doesn't come with love or regret. He comes with logic, with arguments, with refusal so absolute it borders on religious. Because if he can deny the impossible, then maybe he can deny the guilt that shadows his every thought. If he can outplay the witch, then maybe he was never part of the reason she was born. If he can deny the witch, if he can outplay the witch, then maybe he was never part of the reason why she was born. Maybe he was never part of the reason she was born. Okay. I'll probably have to fix that later. The truth does not change accordingly to our ability to stomach it. Flannery O'Connor. What makes O'Connor's quote so haunting in this context is Battler doesn't reject fantasy because it's irrational. He rejects it because it may be right. This isn't a theory video. We won't be dissecting culprits or charting red truths. This is a psychological dissent, an autopsy of a mask held so tightly it refuses the skin. We are here, always proofread. We are here to explore the defense mechanisms of denial, the betrayal that festers in the silence, and the myths that mirror the ways that grief rewrites identity. Because Battler's battle was never about proving witches were real. It's about protecting himself from a truth he was never ready to face. And by the end, we won't be asking who the witch is. We'll be asking how much of Battler had to die so the skeptic could survive. Okay, I'm fine with that intro. I will adjust that later because I highlighted that because I didn't like the way it sounded like last week when I was working on this. I'll probably fix that later. Battler doesn't just become the detective because he's certain of the truth. He becomes the detective because it's safer than facing what can't be explained. The game board grants him structure, rules, logic, a battlefield where emotions can be reframed as clues and chaos becomes manageable through reasoning. In a family soaked in tension, death, and unresolved pain, becoming the rational outsider allows Battler to distance himself intellectually and emotionally. This is the core of his mask, not intellectual superiority, but emotional retreat. By engaging with witches as metaphors, tricks, or puzzles, he rewrites the nature of conflict. Pain becomes a riddle, grief becomes a performance, and Beatrice as an opponent becomes an enigma. Sociologist Irving Goffman argued that identity is often a performance such as persona adopted depending on the audience and context. Sociologist Irving Goffman argued that identity is often a performance such as a persona adopted depending on the audience and context. Okay. Battler's detective is just that, a persona. In a way, a structured role in which he is not required to feel, only think. His logic, his defiant posturing, his refusal to entertain fantasy. These aren't acts of confidence, they're rituals of avoidance. At first, they work. The detective role creates emotional distance. It turns the horror into a mystery, the guilt into misdirection. It lets him move forward without looking inward. But masks don't erase the face beneath. They only delay the moment of recognition. The longer he clings to the illusion of order, the more the cracks begin to show. I called out Rosa unintentionally right there, because I did a video on the multiple masks that Rosa wears, because Rosa Ushiromiya has a lot of masks that she wears. So I kind of indirectly called her out in this one. I realized that later on when I was actually reading this over last week. Wait, I just called out Rosa. So let me read this again. At first, these are rituals of avoidance. At first they work. The detective role creates emotional distance. It turns the horror into a mystery, the guilt into misdirection. It lets him move forward without looking inward. But the masks don't erase the face beneath. They only delay the moment of recognition. The longer he clings to the illusion of order, the more cracks begin to show. Each game board becomes more intimate. The mystery grows less abstract. The logic begins to falter. He's not solving a puzzle anymore. He's confronted by something that logic can't hold. It's like a building scaffolding over a collapsed house. It may look stable from the outside, but the foundation is already gone. And sooner or later, the structure will collapse. That's a funny analogy I put there. All right, hold on. That's fine. Because the detective role was never about the truth, it was about survival. And the moment it stopped serving its purpose, Balor would be forced to confront what he spent the entire game trying to avoid. If the detective persona is the scaffolding, then what lies beneath is fractured, unsteady terrain shaped by betrayal and loss. Balor's relentless denial of witches, his refusal to engage Beatrice on her terms, isn't just stubbornness. It's a psychological defense, one rooted in something more universal than fantasy: betrayal trauma. Betrayal trauma is when someone we trust betrays us so profoundly that our brain blocks out the event, not because it mattered, but because it mattered too much. Balor mirrors this because he is not only fighting for the truth, but to keep it buried. Denial, repression, dissociation aren't just clinical terms. They're tactics the human mind uses to avoid being overwhelmed. In the Balor's case, they become integral to his internal game board. Each proof truth is a reinforcement. Each logical deduction can be seen as a reinforcement over a collapsing house. By rejecting magic, he doesn't have to ask who represents it. By solving murders like puzzles, he doesn't have to feel them as grief. This isn't an act of cruelty. This is an act of fear. His mind does what many do in the aftermath of emotional trauma. He recasts the narrative into something survivable. But the cost is steep. It severs him from his own emotions. It turns relationships into scripts. It transforms grief into a mystery that must never be solved. As the game board repeats, the cracks deepen. His defenses begin to show strain, not because the logic is flawed, but because it can't contain the magnitude of what it's suppressing. The scaffolding begins to tremble, and with each confrontation, Beatrice chips away at that wall. Every game board, it's becoming harder and harder for his psyche. Trauma doesn't just wound, it erodes, it fractures time, blurs memory, and forces the brain to bury what it cannot bear and process. Balor's experience on the game board is less of a mystery to be solved, and more so a psychological landscape built from these fractures. The repetition of events, the shifting truths, the reoccurrence of symbols and faces, it all mirrors the way trauma lodges itself in the mind, not as a clean narrative, but as a loop of unresolved emotion. In psychological terms, trauma impairs memory integration. It separates experience from context and emotion from logic. And Balor's reality reflects this. He cannot reconcile what he sees with what he feels. He clings to the logic because it promises structure, but emotion bleeds through every frame of the game board, threatening to collapse that structure at any moment. This is cognitive dissonance at its rawest form. He insists on explanations that make no emotional sense because the alternative is facing what these emotions reveal. This is a very appropriate song. His rational mind and his emotional truth are in direct conflict, and the dissonance corrodes both. Each truth becomes a confrontation between these halves of self. The blue truth tries to hold the game together. The red truth tries to force it open. The detective persona clings to cause and effect. The wounded self beneath it only understands grief. And it's not just denial anymore, it's disintegration. His mind grows erratic, his confidence falters, his ability to hold structure together begins to slip. The longer the games go on, the more impossible it becomes. I like the way this is sounding so far. We're making great progress with this. Alright, let's shift music. What time is it? Alright, I got like 10 minutes left. So we'll start Iana's Descent. My whole plane right here, I was just writing notes for this myth section because I'm like, yeah, gotta go into a lot of detail about this. Because if you don't go over just mythology in general, you tend to forget so fast. So we'll start Iana's Descent into the Underworld. Tomorrow, when I have a little bit more free time, we'll do some more. I'll do horror. I'll do this. These are my two screens for tomorrow. Do this, finish up horror, then that's it. Because I'm doing something else, another project on the background. Okay, so Iana's Descent into the Underworld. Let me just make sure I got this right. Because I need to start this in a specific way. Okay. I'm a very big fan. But me, myself and a buddy of mine, we used to tear Umineko apart. We would get into arguments about theory, and out of nowhere, like we can have a little powwow real quick. I resurrected this dead channel because I had to go away for a while because I'm in the military, so I had to stop doing YouTube for a while. Then I was like, you know what? I'll do YouTube again, but I'll do something else. I'll do lore videos because I'm very big into like anime and gaming lore in general. Then out of nowhere, I did I forgot which video it was. Someone requested that I do Umineko lore. I'm like, hey, I know a lot about Umineko lore. I can do Umineko lore. So the first one I did was about Beatrice. We did Beatrice lore. I did Rosa lore last month, and a couple of days ago, someone left me a comment on one of my videos asking me. They left a comment on the Rosa video asking me to do another Umineko video. I'm like, all right, we'll do another one. I was planning on doing one soon anyway, so might as well get started with this. It's just these specific lore videos for Umineko at least take a long time to do, just because there's so much what ifs. Umineko is a very speculative genre, well, story in general. There's no concrete truth. There's no canonical route. No one knows the truth besides the devs and Beatrice's voice actress, apparently. So we have to be very careful when we're doing these, because I personally don't like digging into theories or speculative content. I just try to do the best that I can just to not get into that, because it just opens up a lot of rabbit holes. So the primary focus of this video was just focus on Valor. Just Valor in general. No episodic lore, no Yasu shenanigans, no Shakan and stuff. Just Valor, and that's it. I am gonna talk about I introduced an angle in the Rosa video about Rosa having resentment towards Valor. It's there, it's just people don't really like see it. There's resentment towards Valor in regards to Rosa, just because Valor represents what Rosa could have had as a child. Valor left. He left after yeah. Thank you. Valor left after Rudolph ended up getting remarried with Kitty after Valor's mom died. He left. Rosa could have did that, but Rosa was shackled by the family. She was stuck on Rokinjima. Everything that Valor did, leaving the island, rebellion against the family, doing his own thing. She could have did that, but she was stuck in the stranglehold of Kinzo. He was trapped. She couldn't do anything. And as we've seen, she couldn't build interpersonal relationships. And the only time she ever built a relationship, you saw what happened. Her husband left her with all that debt. So everything that Valor has done in his life, that's something that Rosa could have did. There's resentment there. It's just people don't see it. So I'll go into a little bit more detail about it, because I did allude to that when I was doing Rosa's video, but Rosa herself did everything that Valor had, she could have had, but she was just trapped. That island was her prison. Valor didn't allow the shackles of the Ushiromiya family to hold him back. Okay, let's start this. And then tomorrow, when I'm out of work, we'll do another hour of this. Then we're good. But yeah, these take a long time to do, because I need to make sure everything is 100% accurate. I cross-reference with my friend, who's a psychologist, and has as much lore as I do in regards to Umineko. He wants me to do Angie next. Angie's a funny one. Angie's gonna be interesting, because Angie has a lot of baggage. Maria would be a very funny topic. I really like Rose, but she's a complex character. Like she's a lot of bad, like she gets a bad reputation because of obviously what she did in Maria, but she's complex in her own right. Everybody in Umineko is complex, even the stakes. I plan on doing a video on the stakes. I'll primarily focus on Lucifer, because she is the leader of the stakes, but I plan on doing a video on the stakes. Not really much to talk about, but there's something there. But everybody in the Ushiromiya family has they have good lore. Alright, let's see. So we'll start this up, and tomorrow when I get out of work, we'll get into this. So a lot of people don't know about Iana, so I'll go into a little bit of detail about her. So always keep an iPad of notes, just in case, because you never know when it's gonna come in handy. So Iana was pretty much when she descended into the underworld, she was stripped of her power and had to go through the underworld literally naked. Wow. Yana was a goddess of heaven and heaven, power, and earth. But when she descended into the underworld, none of that mattered. At each gate of the underworld, she was stripped. She was stripped. First, her robes, and robes. First of her robes, jewelry, title, and pride. And funny thing is, when I was actually researching myths to actually put with this, when I was like, wait a minute, Iana is similar to this. Like, there's a parallel to this. Then I realized, like, wait a minute. Remember when Balor was stripped naked? Holy crap! What a coincidence! She goes to the underworld. She's stripped naked. Balor was stripped naked at one point. What a coincidence! Thank you, anime, for like engraving that into my mind. I'm like, wow, that is such a weird coincidence. I was gonna reference her, but lo and behold, Balor went through the same thing. He was stripped naked at one point. All right, vulnerable and exposed. Yeah, like you know, mythology is awesome. I love Japanese mythology, Greek mythology, and mythology is awesome. There's so many parallels to anything. But yeah, like I was thinking about what I should use for this video, because in one of my horror videos that I'm doing, I'm using mythology as well. Like I've been introducing mythology in a lot of my videos recently. So I'm like, all right, I'll use Umineko. Then I'm like, okay, there's a couple parallels. And I'm like, all right, I'm using Yana here. I got something. Then I'm like, wait a minute, Yana was stripped naked when she was going through the underworld. Wow, Balor after one of the Game Boys was stripped naked. I'm like, damn, holy crap. There's so much stuff. There's so much stuff here. Vulnerable and exposed. Vulnerable and exposed. So, first of her robes, jewelry, and title and pride, until she stood naked in front of her sister. Vulnerable and exposed. This myth is not about death. But fuck. Alright, let me finish this little section. This section, but we gotta wrap it up. But about transformation. About transformation. To which there walks a similar this one's pretty self-explanatory, because think about the role that Balor plays. He has the detective role, but every game that role begins to like diminish more and more and more. Like he's being every time he loses, he's losing a part of himself. He's being stripped of his power, his agency, which mirrors this. So this one's a little bit easier than Psyche and Arrows. Proud detective. Rules and rhetoric. It's just like Yana, the longer these game boards go on, he's stripped of these roles that I just introduced. Similar to her. So, going off of what we know about Battler throughout each game board, biggest thing that we're taking from him is his confidence, his certainty, and his control. Yeah, control. Control, man. Yes. It's the confidence. Wow, where's the confidence? Okay, that's good. We can go into a little bit more detail tomorrow, so let's read this and see how this sounds. Iana was a goddess of heaven, power, and earth. But when she descended into the underworld, none of that mattered. At each gate of the underworld, she was stripped. First of her robes, jewelry, title, and pride, until she stood naked in front of her sister, vulnerable and exposed. This myth is not about death, but about transformation, to which Balor walks a similar path. On the surface, he begins with confidence, a proud detective, a skeptic with control of the rules and rhetoric. But the deeper he descends into these game boards, the more personal they become, the more is taken from him. First, the confidence, then certainty, and finally, the control. Yes. Okay. All right. So unfortunately, we do have to end this here because I have to get ready for work. Tomorrow, when I'm out, I'll do an hour of this. I'll do an hour of horror, and that's it. Well, we are making good strides with this. This is about halfway done. We're almost done. Besides that, I'll see people later. Have a good rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow.